My mom kicked me out at 18. 5 years later, she begged me for help. The last thing my mom said before she slammed the front door behind me was, "If you walk away tonight, don't ever expect to come back." The crazy part? I wasn't the one who chose to leave. I was 18 years old, wearing an old hoodie, carrying one backpack, and standing on the sidewalk outside the only home I'd ever known. It was early October, in Columbus, Ohio. The air was cold enough that I could see my breath. I stared at the front door, waiting for it to open again. It never did. I wish I could tell you my mom and I had always hated each other. That would make what happened easier to understand. The truth is more complicated. My name is Hannah. I had just turned 18 2 weeks earlier. I had graduated high school that spring with good grades, and I was supposed to start classes at Columbus State Community College while working part-time at a grocery store. I wasn't a troublemaker. I didn't party. I didn't drink. I wasn't perfect, but I tried my best. Ever since my dad died from a heart attack when I was 12, it had just been Mom and me. For a while, we were close. We watched movies together on Friday nights. We ordered cheap pizza when we couldn't afford anything else. She used to tell me, "It's you and me against the world." I believed her. Then, about 3 years before everything fell apart, she met Rick. At first, he seemed nice enough. He fixed things around the house. He brought flowers. He made my mom laugh again. After losing my dad, seeing her smile felt like a miracle. I wanted her to be happy. I really did. But little by little, things started changing. Rick always had an opinion about me. Hannah sleeps too late. Hannah spends too much time studying. Hannah needs to get a real job. No matter what I did, it wasn't enough. If I worked extra shifts, I wasn't home enough. If I stayed home to help Mom, I wasn't earning enough money. He always found something to criticize. Mom never defended me. At first, she'd change the subject. Then, she'd stay quiet. Eventually, she started agreeing with him. One evening, I came home after an 8-hour shift stocking shelves at the grocery store. Rick was sitting in my usual chair at the kitchen table. He didn't even look up. Mom folded her arms. "We need to talk." Those 4 words made my stomach drop. I sat down. "What happened?" Rick answered before Mom could. "You're an adult now." I looked at him. "Okay. It's time you started acting like one." I glanced at Mom. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm working," I said. "I'm starting college. I help pay for groceries." Rick shrugged. "You don't pay enough." I blinked. "What?" Mom finally spoke. "The electric bill has gone up. So has everything else." "I know. I've been picking up extra shifts." Rick leaned back in his chair. "We've made a decision." Something about the way he said, "we" made me feel sick. "What decision?" Mom took a deep breath. "We think it's time for you to move out." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it sounded impossible. "You can't be serious." Rick looked at me without any emotion. "We are. I just turned 18. So, I don't have enough money. You'll figure it out." I looked at my mom. She was still staring at the table. "Mom?" "Nothing." "Mom, please." She finally looked up. "I moved out when I was 18. You had Grandma. I don't have anyone." She rubbed her forehead. "You'll be okay." "No." I could already feel tears building. "I won't. I can't afford an apartment. I don't even have a car." Rick sighed dramatically. "This is exactly what I mean." "What?" "You always expect someone else to solve your problems." I stared at him. "I've never asked you for anything." He shrugged. "You live under my roof. I almost corrected him. It wasn't his roof. My parents had bought this house years before they ever met him, but I could tell it wouldn't matter. Mom suddenly stood up. We're done talking. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're actually throwing me out. She looked exhausted. I think it'll help you become independent. I already am. I work. I study. I pay what I can. What else do you want from me? She looked away. I need you out by Friday. It was Tuesday. 3 days. That's all I had. I barely slept those 3 nights. I searched apartment listings I couldn't afford. Called friends whose parents didn't have room. Applied for extra hours at work. I kept hoping Mom would change her mind. Every morning, I expected her to knock on my bedroom door and say she'd made a mistake. She never did. Friday came faster than I wanted. I packed everything I owned into 1 backpack and 2 plastic storage bins. That was my entire life. A few clothes, my laptop, family photos, Dad's old watch, the blanket my grandmother knitted before she passed away. Mom watched from the hallway. She looked uncomfortable. For 1 second, I thought she might stop me. Instead, she handed me $20. Here! I stared at the bill. $20. That was it. After 18 years together, after every birthday, every Christmas, every bedtime story, my whole childhood had somehow become worth $20. I don't want it. Hannah. No. I shook my head. If you're making me leave. My voice cracked. Then don't pretend this makes it better. Rick opened the front door. I think we're done here. I picked up my backpack. Before walking outside, I turned toward my mom one last time. If Dad were still alive, she flinched. Would he let this happen? Tears instantly filled her eyes. Rick answered instead. Leave. So I did. The grocery store manager, Mr. Alvarez, let me stay in the employee break room until closing while I figured out what to do. When he realized I had nowhere to sleep, he quietly pulled me aside. You got family. I swallowed. Not anymore. He nodded slowly. My sister rents out a room. It isn't fancy, but it's clean. I nearly cried. He scribbled an address onto a receipt. Tell her I sent you. That tiny room above his sister's garage became my first home. The rent was cheap. The ceiling leaked when it rained. The heater barely worked. But every night, when I locked the door, I reminded myself that nobody could throw me out without warning again. Life became a routine. Wake up at 5. Open the grocery store. Go to classes. Study until midnight. Repeat. Some weeks I lived on peanut butter sandwiches because they were the cheapest thing I could buy. I learned exactly which gas stations sold coffee for under $2. I stopped buying new clothes, stopped going out, stopped expecting life to be fair. There were nights I missed my mom so much, it physically hurt. I almost called her dozens of times. I never did. She didn't call me either. Not on Thanksgiving. Not at Christmas. Not on my 19th birthday. Nothing. It was like I had disappeared. About a year later, I transferred to Ohio State University after earning enough credits and scholarships. Walking across that campus felt unreal. For the first time since Dad died, I felt proud of myself. Not because anyone told me to be, because I'd earned it. Mr. Alvarez hugged me before classes started. I knew you'd make it. His sister, Rosa, cried harder than I did. You'll always have a room here, she said. People who barely knew me had become more like family than the person who gave birth to me. That realization hurt, but it also healed something inside me. Over the next few years, things slowly got better. I graduated with a business degree, landed an entry-level job at a logistics company in Cincinnati, worked harder than anyone else, got promoted, then promoted again. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was building something. One evening, after a long day at work, I sat in my own apartment overlooking the city. It wasn't huge. It wasn't luxurious. But every piece of furniture inside belonged to me. Nobody could take it away. Nobody could tell me I didn't deserve to be there. As I poured myself a cup of coffee, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Normally, I ignored those calls. For some reason, I answered. Hello? There was silence. Then I heard a voice I hadn't heard in almost 5 years. Hannah. My heart stopped. It was my mother. She sounded older, tired, broken. Before I could say a single word, she whispered something that made every painful memory come rushing back. I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything. She started crying. But I have nowhere else to go. I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything. She started crying. But I have nowhere else to go. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. I had imagined this conversation 100 different ways over the years. Sometimes she called to apologize. Sometimes she called to tell me she'd made a mistake. Sometimes she never called at all. But I had never imagined hearing fear in her voice. Mom? I'm so sorry, Hannah. My hand tightened around the phone. What happened? She took a shaky breath. It's a long story. I have time. There was another long silence before she finally spoke. Rick left. I closed my eyes. When? About 8 months ago. I didn't know what to say. He lost his job almost 2 years ago, she continued. At first, we thought things would get better. They didn't. She sounded embarrassed. He started borrowing money. From who? Everyone. She paused. He opened credit cards in both our names. My stomach sank. I didn't even know until collectors started calling. What happened after that? He disappeared. Just disappeared? One morning, he packed his truck while I was at work. She let out a bitter laugh. When I got home, half the furniture was gone. I leaned back against my couch. So where have you been? I lost the house. The words hung in the air. The same house my dad had worked overtime to pay for. The same house my parents bought together years before Rick ever walked through the front door. What do you mean you lost it? I couldn't keep up with the mortgage. Her voice broke. Everything fell apart. I wanted to feel satisfied. I really did. For years, I'd imagined karma finding the people who hurt me. But hearing my mother cry didn't make me feel victorious. It made me feel sad. Not because she had lost everything, because she'd lost herself. Where are you now? In my car. What? I've been sleeping in parking lots. The image hit me harder than I expected. I remembered my first night after she kicked me out. The fear, the loneliness, the uncertainty. No matter how angry I was, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, not even her. Have you eaten today? No. I looked toward my kitchen. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys. Where are you? She gave me the address of a 24-hour grocery store about 15 minutes away. I'll be there. Hannah. I'm coming. I hung up before I could change my mind. The drive felt strangely familiar. 5 years earlier, I had been the one with nowhere to go. Now I was driving toward the person who had put me there. When I pulled into the parking lot, I spotted an old silver sedan tucked into the corner beneath a broken light. I almost didn't recognize my mother. She looked thinner. Her hair, once carefully dyed every month, was mostly gray now. There were dark circles under her eyes. She stepped out slowly as I parked. For a moment, we just stood there looking at each other. 5 years. 5 birthdays, 5 Christmases, 5 years of silence. She started walking toward me. Then she stopped. I don't expect a hug. I nodded. You're right. A sad smile crossed her face. I don't deserve one. No, you don't. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I pointed toward the passenger seat. Get in. We drove to a nearby diner. It was quiet, mostly truck drivers and late shift workers. A waitress greeted us with a tired smile. What can I get you? My mom looked down at the menu but didn't answer. I noticed her hands trembling. I'll have the pot roast, I said. And she'll have the same. She looked at me. You don't have to. I'm buying dinner. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. During the meal, neither of us touched the subject we'd both been avoiding. Instead, we talked about small things. The weather, traffic, my job. It felt awkward, like two strangers trying to remember they were family. Eventually, she put down her fork. I owe you the truth. I stayed quiet. I let Rick convince me that pushing you out would make our lives easier. She looked ashamed. At first, it was little comments. She's old enough. She needs to learn responsibility. I should have defended you. She wiped away a tear. Instead, I chose him. I didn't interrupt. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that you'd figure things out, that one day we'd fix everything. She laughed, bitterly. Then every month that passed made me more embarrassed to call. So, I stayed silent. I thought maybe you hated me. I looked at her. I did. She nodded. I know. For a long time, I hated you. I understand. No. I shook my head. I don't think you do. She looked up. I wasn't angry because you made me struggle. I was angry because you made me believe I wasn't worth fighting for. She covered her mouth. When Dad died, I thought at least I still had you. My voice cracked. But the day you closed that door, I felt like I lost both my parents. She began crying openly. I'm so sorry. I know. I've said those words to myself every day for 5 years. The waitress quietly refilled our coffee cups without saying a word. After she walked away, Mom reached into her purse. I have something. She handed me a worn envelope. Inside were dozens of unopened birthday cards, Christmas cards, graduation cards. Every one of them was addressed to me. I stared at them in confusion. What are these? I bought them every year. You never sent them. She nodded. I'd write them. Then I'd convince myself you'd throw them away. So, I kept them. I opened the first one. It was written on my 19th birthday. I hope you're safe. I hope you're eating enough. I miss you. Every single day. The second. Happy 20th birthday. I drove past your old grocery store today, hoping I'd accidentally see you. The third. I heard from Mrs. Alvarez that you transferred to Ohio State. I've never been more proud of you, even though I don't deserve to say it. Tears blurred the words. I looked at her. If you were proud, why didn't you tell me? She broke down. Because I was ashamed. I didn't think I deserved to be part of your life anymore. For the first time that night, I believed her. Not because of her words, because of the regret on her face. Real regret looks different. It doesn't ask to erase the past. It accepts responsibility for it. I can't change what I did, she whispered. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I know. She looked down. I wanted one chance to tell you that you never deserved what happened. You were always enough. Those were the words I'd waited years to hear. I just never imagined hearing them in a nearly empty diner at midnight. I drove her to a modest extended stay hotel afterward. At the front desk, I rented a room for 2 weeks. You don't have to do this, she said. I know. She looked around the clean room. I thought you'd take me home. I met her eyes. I own my apartment. She nodded slowly. I know, but I'm not ready for that. I understand. I can help you. I'll help you find work. I'll help you get back on your feet. I'll even help you meet with a financial counselor. But I can't pretend the last 5 years never happened. She nodded. I wouldn't ask you to. Over the next several months, we rebuilt something neither of us thought was possible. Not the relationship we used to have. That was gone. We built a new one. Slower. More honest. She found a job at a local library. Started attending counseling. Paid off small debts one at a time. Sometimes we'd have coffee together on Saturday mornings. Sometimes we'd go weeks without talking. Healing wasn't a straight line. It never is. One afternoon, almost a year after that phone call, she asked if she could see the apartment I'd worked so hard to buy. I let her in. She walked through every room quietly. When she reached the bookshelf in my living room, she stopped. Dad's old watch sat inside a small glass case. Beside it was a framed photo of the three of us from years earlier. She picked it up carefully. I almost threw this away. I looked at her. What? The day Rick moved in. He said it was unhealthy to keep living in the past. She closed her eyes. I can't believe I listened. I took the picture from her and placed it back on the shelf. Dad would have wanted us to do better. She nodded. He already raised one of us that way. I smiled for the first time. So maybe it's not too late for the other. She started crying again. This time, I hugged her. Not because the pain had disappeared. Not because she'd earned back those 5 years. Those years were gone forever. I hugged her because carrying anger had become heavier than carrying forgiveness. Forgiveness didn't erase what happened. It simply meant I refused to let the worst day of my life control every day that came after it. Today, I'm 24. My life isn't perfect, but it's peaceful. Mom and I still have difficult conversations sometimes. There are moments when old wounds resurface. Trust, once broken, takes years to rebuild, sometimes longer. But every brick we lay now is built on honesty instead of silence. If there's one thing this journey taught me, it's that being abandoned doesn't define your future. The people who walk away from you don't get to decide how your story ends. Your strength isn't measured by how little you've suffered. It's measured by what you choose to build after everything falls apart. My mother's greatest mistake wasn't kicking me out. It was believing that fear and someone else's influence were more important than protecting her own daughter. My greatest victory wasn't buying a home or building a career. It was refusing to let bitterness become the person I was. Because success can give you comfort. But forgiveness, when it's freely chosen, with healthy boundaries, gives you peace. And peace is something no one can ever take away from you again.